for the first of a series of conversations that we plan to have. And thanks to Selena, I did get a needs assessment document where I had an idea of what parents were looking for and what were some of the main concerns that they had. So I've tried to incorporate some of the points from the needs assessment and some of my own sort of ideas based on my current and prior work, particularly in the last few months since the pandemic started. And we all are in this very unique situation. So I am from West Orange, New Jersey, so a very different geographical area. And as you all know, that the epicenter of COVID-19 was the East Coast before, primarily New York and New Jersey, and now it's pretty, like almost like spread out. So the effects of the pandemic, they do remain. You cannot say that it's been there for like a few months and we're at the sort of very final stages. It's nothing like that. So all the more reason to have a conversation and to have a webinar like this so that we can share our sort of experiences and also maximize this time for ourselves and our families. So I'd like to move on to the agenda for today, which again, it's good to know, just like we structure our days, it's good to know what this talk will include and, how much we could, and my whole idea is to start, share some of my ideas and then open the forum for a question and answer towards the end. And having said that, if anyone, any of the attendees still feel that, there's this question or this comment that, it's just really something that you have to say, you just can't wait, you're more than welcome to raise your hand or whatever. Selena will be managing that. So the agenda is, I'd like to review a few strategies for readiness, response, and coping during the current pandemic. And also children manifest various symptoms and various sort of reactions to their environment. So, how to help children cope. Again, it's not going to be specific to every attendee's child, of course, because, this is more it's more like generalized, but still it's based on research and all that should help. And then for me, something that I hold very close to my heart, it's self-care for parents, for caregivers. And the importance of that is something I'd really like to highlight. And then, of course, jumping into some of the very sort of practical strategies. And recently, some of my work and my research is based on acceptance and commitment therapy, which was started by Dr. Stephen Hayes. So ACT has been recently studied more so with families and parents of children with special needs in particular. So I'd like to highlight what is ACT and some specific strategies that it's almost like an introduction to this type of it's not bad to call it an intervention. And then I'd like to end with some reflections from the Quran and Sunnah. We're in actually the first 10 days of Zilhajj, the last month of the year for us, and how important this time is. In particular, prayers for children, prayers for family. So again, I felt that highlighting that would be very relevant for us. So moving on to coping with the stress of an infectious disease outbreak. We were never raised in an outbreak. All of us who are present right now, we really don't know what this was prior to us experiencing, right? More so, how on earth do we deal with our kids and families? We're stuck at home. There is telehealth, or what we call summer camp online, or there's none of that, or it's been a very, very hard couple of months. And it seems like the rest of the year and the way things are down south, particularly in Texas, I believe that even schools starting from fall most likely going to be online, and it's again, the entire rest of the year is going to be hard. So how do we manage in this time? So the idea is that seeking support and continuing our connections with our friends, our families, by talking to them on text or phone, and via email or social media. The idea is social isolation is frankly, when we're very sort of involved with our kids, there is a very sort of a, a great chance of exhaustion for sure on a daily basis, and also social isolation. So more so in a pandemic like this, right, where you can't meet anybody, but you get so caught up at home. And also the idea is to stay informed, but at the same time not induce anxiety by going over the daily news or something. Of course, staying informed is one thing, having an idea of what the local state laws are, especially with this widespread pandemic, all the more reason it's increasing. But the idea is to guard ourselves and our families from that additional stress of what we call uncertainty, right? Even if certain schools are have not yet announced whether school in fall is going to be in person or online, or what the mode of instruction is going to be, that anxiety, and that as a parent, of course, as a caregiver, it's very natural. But the idea is to protect ourselves, because why I always emphasize that is the way we as caregivers, as parents, as the backbone, literally, especially as mothers, as the backbone of the family, how we process our stresses and how stressed we are. It's completely, the vibes and the impact is transferred on to our spouses and transferred on to our kids as well. So it's very important for us to regulate ourselves, and also keep that in mind, that we need to be in a constant check of our own self-care, and we're going to go into that as well. Now, again, our families, our spouses, our parents might be living with us or whatever, validating the feelings of everyone in the house, right? We cannot just suppress it, that, if our child is upset that they cannot have play dates like they used to with their friends, we need to validate their feelings. It is a significant, it's quite significant to basically experience that sense of loss, that you're unable to interact with people that you want. A lot of patience for us, that we need to remind ourselves that, again, this might all be like commonsensical things, but again, the more the more time that passes, as we enter into the next phase, which is like fall starting in a few weeks, the more we need to remind ourselves, of being patient, and also checking in with our kids on a regular basis.
So Sadaf, sorry to interrupt you, but a lot of our panelists are asking, our attendees are asking if we can see your face, if possible. Yeah, we can only see the slides. And so if you can, is it possible to do side-by-side mode where we can see your face and the slide?
You can do that. Now can you see me? You don't?
No.
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. Because each time I've done this in the past, it's like my face comes on the top right. And
yes, I see it like that.
I can see it on the side.
I can see it on the side, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Now I can see it too.
Awesome.
Okay, great. So it's working.
Like a box or something on top, or is it like whoever has their video open?
I can see you and the slides, but
okay.
Everybody's good?
All right, thank you. But in case you have any sort of, glitch in that, please let us know ASAP so that we can fix it. Okay, now do you still see it? Just to check.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. So, yes, so moving on. So again, we talk about, regular check-ins and all that. So let's move on to the next slide. All right, so now how do we manage the current time, which seems to be never ending, and it seems to be like, oh my God, this will carry on for like a while, right? So what are some of the things we could do? Again, these are very general suggestions, but we can sort of pick and choose of what would apply to our respective families. Say, for example, even if you're isolated, you're in quarantine, the idea is to realize ourselves and share it with our kids and spouses, a family, whoever's living with us. It's temporary. This is not going to be forever. This is, again, it's hard. But we need to realize that it's going to end eventually, soon, in a couple of months, hopefully. And also keeping our family schedule very consistent. Now, the idea is when we're home, we're working from home. Occasionally, depending on our nature of if we are essential workers, we might need to go in as well. But the fact is that, how can we, as much as possible, be consistent with, say, bedtimes, with our meal times, right? And also exercise. it's because everything's in a flux. Everyone's home. It's a situation that we probably have never experienced in our lives, right? So again, having written schedules or visual schedules in particular for your child or kids, that would be an immense tool and an immense help. And again, who could help you create those visual schedules? There are resources online as well, but if you have specific clinicians working with you, whether it's a BCBA, whether it's a psychologist, whoever you consult, or if you have that based on your years of experience working with outside professionals, you could easily Google, there are several websites, and I'd be happy to share several resources with all the attendees of how we can create our visual schedules where, you could print out, or depending on the reading level of your child or whatever, we could again have a structure which is right. It could be, those schedules could be on your child's bedroom door, or the schedule could be, there could be two. One could be downstairs in the kitchen, one could be up, based on how your house is structured, right? The idea is to have, again, not to be rigid in your schedules. We are not trying to encourage that, but to have some form of structure which is going to make your life easy, and also predictability decreases the frustration and stress that builds up in children. So I am a big proponent of that. Again, this is a unique scenario where we are home, everybody's home pretty much the whole day, right? So still scheduling quality family activities, like maybe watch a movie, maybe like go for a walk or some outdoor activity together, again, where practicing the SOPs, like wear a mask and all that, these things we need to again look forward to. One thing is to plan stuff for your family. The other thing is to check in with ourselves. Am I really getting so stressed out with all of that? Oh my God, I need to plan for this. I need to plan for the meals. I need to plan for this. And I'll tie whatever I'm saying to the self-care aspect as well. We all need to do this. These are all great strategies. But then at the same time, if we are stressed to the point that we're becoming like a pressure cooker which can burst any time, that's where the check-in comes in, and that's where the self-care comes in as well. Now, what can we do with our kids? Coming back to some specific activities, small mercies like Zoom right now, video chats right now, like all the instructions, or whether it's summer camp, or whether it's instruction prior to summer started, or during summer, or now after. Let's use these tools. If play dates are not possible, let's schedule, like, if not every day, that might get cumbersome for you to schedule. We could have maybe alternate days, or twice a week. We could have play dates with all the friends. All the family friends could just log in, and the kids could play some online sort of interactive activities. One of the parents could moderate. What are some of the things we could still do to sort of, help our kids? And again, engaging in meaningful and fun activities is something that we can for sure practice. Now, kids of different ages, they react to stressors in the environment, and this is a traumatic event that we all are experiencing. The fact is that there are specific reactions that different age groups might sort of manifest. And for example, preschool children under 5 might, in the current scene, everybody's worked up and all that, they might have bad dreams. They might sort of exhibit fear of being alone. They might exhibit speech difficulties, might sort of have changes in their toileting. They might have been I work with a lot of families as a BCBA, and I've seen that kids who were previously toilet trained are just back to square one. They're having a lot of toileting accidents. That's their way of expressing their stress. I also see changes in appetite with a lot of families are like, my kid is started to eat way more than he used to, or has started to eat way less. So that's one way. Temper tantrums is the most common thing that I've heard and I've seen. And there's one family that I would like to mention that I work with, where the child was never exhibiting maladaptive behaviors related to aggression towards parents. And now he's biting and scratching and hitting his parents, because it's just he's stuck at home. He can't do anything. He's not going to school. He hasn't been for many months. So a lot of these changes are ways that kids, and we might get worried where this is regression for our child. We might get worried where we're concerned that all the years of ABA or all the years of effort and therapies and all that, it's just down the drain. As a caregiver, we might have thoughts like that, where is it all over? Do I have to start from scratch? Well, the answer to that is no. because these behaviors are actually communication. That's a way that children are communicating their frustration. How would we experience, okay, so how do we as adults take out frustration? We might yell at our spouse, we might sort of have a bad mood, or we might just vent out with our parent or sister or friend, or we might just bicker at our kids. That's our way of expressing our frustration, right? We might not be like this, but then that's what we need to know. How can we help our kids in the preschool stage? Again, it might sound redundant, but being patient and tolerant it goes miles. And how the only way we can be patient and tolerant if we practice self-care, and we are going to delve into that as a major chunk of our talk today. And then also verbal and physical reassurance. We sometimes forget to hug and kiss our kids. We're so caught up, and we're so frustrated by their behaviors. We're like, oh my God, I'm just sick of all that's happening. We sometimes forget because we are not regulated ourselves, right? We aren't getting that maybe hug and embrace that we want, from our loved ones, and so it's like, because of that, we forget to sort of pass it on to our kids. And again, regularity in family routines, planning, calming, comforting activities, a lot of sensory activities. For example, if some kids like deep pressure, we might schedule that sensory breaks. We might have a visual schedule of a sensory diet. What are some of the things that might calm a child? Maybe like some hand fidgets, hand toys. Therapy works miles if there's sort of, a lot of hand stims or whatever. A lot of sensory activities might help calm kids down right now. And also, again, we talked about having a good schedule where, bedtime is fixed or whatever. But sometimes if you feel that kids, just extremely worked up, then maybe having a bit of flexibility in their sleep arrangements, where, for example, okay, mom, the child might be very used to sleeping by themselves, but again, maybe because they're feeling fearful nowadays, maybe mom could sleep for a while, or put them to bed or something like that. Maybe alter that a little bit as well to sort of help them. And then quickly going over, this is basically where school-aged children, how would they, between the ages of 6 and 12, in the current scenario, stuck at home, a lot of, again, irritability, aggressive behavior might come, being more clingy, having more temper tantrums, sleep disturbances is something so common. Again, at this age, kids might say, I have a stomach ache, or I have a headache. That's one way that they might sort of, be sort of expressing their stress and discomfort. And also competing because now maybe dad is also working from home, if dad is there, or mom is now more at home than before, right? So in that case, it's more like, competing for the parents' attention, a lot of that as well, a lot of clingy behavior, and being forgetful in general about things that you expect the child to do or something. But how, again, can we address that? Experiencing this is of course stressful, but the idea is to be gentle yet firm, as far as the scheduling of activities is concerned. Again, practicing regular physical activity and stretching. It's a scientifically proven fact that exercise and even yoga, I have resources, there are picture cards where even I'm practicing yoga with my clients, even via telehealth. I run a yoga session just by it's ironic how kids can actually follow that, but these techniques would help to regulate and calm themselves. And also staying in touch with friends. Kids between the ages of 6 and 12 are very sensitive to changes in their environment. Even younger kids are, but more so between the ages of 6 and 12. So the idea is to sort of make sure that we are encouraging their connections with their peers and with their friends, because we might just pick up our phone or FaceTime our friends wherever they might be, but it's hard for kids to be independent like that at this age in particular. And then moving on to adolescence, between the ages like teens, basically, they're much older, their sort of concerns might be that, maybe they're aware of what's happening on the news. Maybe they're more conscious of that. And, they also might feel isolated from their peers and loved ones. So again, being in touch, having consistent routines would really help. And also that communication of, and we also might think, my child, I'm sure, is not really would not understand what COVID-19 is, but trust me, I have read out social stories, audio visuals with my students who are nonverbal, and frankly, what something that I always preach, and because I hold, it's very I'm very sensitive to that, is we need to presume intellect. Presumption of intellect is very important. If just because that child is unable to communicate using words, the way that an age mate might, we shouldn't assume that my child is not understanding. I've had clients and I've had students who were nonverbal or were not really communicating, even with language. They were not they didn't have functional language. And there was one student of mine back in Ohio who at the age of 15 and 16 started typing essays and started typing that all my life I could hear and understand what my family and friends used to say. It used to hurt me, but I couldn't express, and used to only express through aggression. And he could actually type, and so we should assume that all our kids, whether it seems that they're not understanding, they are understanding and they are absorbing everything. So moving on, some techniques, some strategies of how we can structure. Moving on to the importance of self-care, and some common strategies that we might we might even read on the internet. We might our friend or our mother or sister or some loved one a coworker might share with us, you should do this, you should do that. But let's take today's webinar as a promise to ourselves, where no matter how much we're convinced that this self-care bit is important, it's a promise to us that we will, no matter what, on our phone calendars, on our to-do list, on the diary, we will practice self-care from today on, not tomorrow. We will practice from today after this, right? What are some of the things we could do? And again, I'll go into also some research of why this is important to convince everyone. Well, get outside. It might be like, yeah, whatever. I did step outside to put the trash out, or I did step outside, for a walk. But no, step outside, get outside for yourself, and take care of your nutritional and sleep needs. How many hours of sleep did you get? Was your sleep like sound sleep? Maybe you need to supplement with melatonin 3 milligrams or something, and just think about it. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you had deep sleep without a loss and stuff? And all. So, and then also tag teams, spend time away from children. When was the last time this happened for most mothers, right? Spend time away from children, not because, and don't feel guilty about it, right? And the idea is, like, the second last point is let go of that guilt that I'm not doing enough, or this say for example, the increase in behaviors or the increase in tantrums and stuff, it's because of me. How many of us have actually thought that? Most of the parents that the families that I'm treating nowadays, almost 99%, it's like a lot of guilt that I see. And I always counter that guilt with the realization and the reminder to the parents that, of how devoted they've been, of how particular with, their previous providers, therapy or whatever else. And even in the current lockdown or the pandemic, everybody, it's like reminding yourself, addressing your cognitive distortion about the effort that you have put in as a parent. Let go of that guilt. Your child's concerns and problems and all that, whatever it is, it's not your fault. That's something that, we might say, yeah, I know that, but do you really believe it? Question yourself today. And also beware of social isolation and exhaustion. Say, even if you don't cook 3 dishes, you can just cook 2, but, take care of yourself. You could plan it, probably you prep some food and, freeze it and then take it out, think about yourself, of how things are going to be important, and safer. And also feed your soul. What is that? Again, namaz and roza and ibadah, of course, is something, but otherwise, how can you feed your soul? Meditation, you know, again, our prayers end up being a very mindful activity, but are we really mindful in our prayers as well? We will do a mindfulness activity once we end, but are we really mindful? You know, when we are praying, are we thinking about the next thing we need to do? Again, let's check ourselves on that angle as well. How many of us are exercising in yoga? We all know how amazing yoga is. We preach it to others. Are we practicing that? Are we implementing that? How many times have we okay, simple thing, deep breathing. If you take 5 mindful deep breaths in a day, the amount of stress that will relieve you is remarkable, and we'll practice that today. And moving on, you know, and before I actually go into that, I wanted to share something where, you know, and I cannot emphasize that enough. I wanted to share some research in particular where, you know, studies have shown that parents of children who have, whether it's special needs, developmental, learning disorders, psychiatric disorders, anything, they are more likely to experience anxiety, depression, insomnia, fatigue, and marital problems. As per research, which is global research, and of across nationalities, across ethnicities, this is applicable. And according to one British study, chronic stress puts parents at risk for medical issues as well. And specifically, I'd like to mention that parents of children with either autism or ADHD had significantly higher levels of both cortisol, the stress hormone, and CRP, which is a biomarker linked to everything from colorectal cancer to diabetes or heart disease. So keeping that you know, the research and studies in mind, that's, again, it's very important to practice self-care. Moving on. Now, what I wanted to introduce in today's webinar is, I don't know how many attendees have heard of ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy. It's an offshoot of the third wave therapies that started in the last 2 decades. And Dr. Stephen Hayes started this. And I'd like to introduce that, where some of the techniques and strategies we can implement at home as well. And you don't need a therapist to really formally go into a session and implement that. But this is something where ACT relies on the use of metaphors to bring about therapeutic change. And it's based on the idea that pain in life is inevitable. And instead of fighting the inevitable stress or pain, acceptance strategies can help clients make peace with it and detach from the intensity of the pain, right? And we're going to go over some of those metaphors. And just to understand this technical term that you might encounter, maybe after this you want to do some research online about ACT. So you need to understand what is the one element called cognitive diffusion, which is a part of this therapy. It's the act of objectifying your thoughts and defusing your irrational ways of thinking from your automatic thought processes, right? We're not perfect in any way. We as caregivers, as mothers, because we are, you know, we have so many hats, you know, of the hat of a chef, the hat of a caregiver, the hat of like a wife, the hat of, you know, a daughter, a mother. There's so many hats that we have, and inadvertently, there are a lot of thoughts in our minds which we can easily call as distortions. So we're going to go over, what I'm going to do is I am going to stop sharing my screen, if that's okay with everyone, and I'm going to enlarge that way we can, you know, but let me try to do that. All right. Okay. Can everyone see me, right? Awesome. So the reason I did that is so that we could, you know, my face would be a little more enlarged. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to share certain what we call metaphors. Okay. And one of the metaphors is referred to as, just really think about it. And as I review the content of what this metaphor is, just try to imagine, despite the distractions that may be around you. One of the metaphors in ACT that we have is referred to as passengers on the bus, right? Where clients imagine that they are driving a bus and the cranky passengers represent their irrational and negative thoughts that sidetrack the driver
from his goal. Instead of listening and getting sidetracked by these angry passengers, which are actually a negative thoughts, the bus driver does not stop the bus or take the bus in the wrong direction. Rather, the bus driver keeps on driving towards the goal of living a more positive and healthier life and commit themselves to stop getting sidetracked and manipulated by the behavior of others. How many of us actually have ever tried to do that, where we are imagining, just imagine, you're the passenger, you're the driver of the bus. Imagine that. Imagine that the irrational or the negative thoughts and the stressors that are around you are all these passengers that are distracting you from your ultimate goal of leading a positive life, or having being better regulated, right? Just imagine that. This is one of the exercises. It's a mental exercise again, but we need to realize that the way we process our thoughts, the way we process our feelings, that is reflected in our actions, and that's reflected in our behavior towards other people. And the most important people right now around us is our immediate radius of influence, which is our spouse, our kids, our families, our parents, our loved ones, whoever's in the house right now. Just practice that. What I'll be doing is I'll be sharing these slides so that when you're by yourself, you can, when you have this quiet time, you can implement this and then also practice this mindful activity. That was one thing to practice, is as if you having passengers on the bus and referring the passengers on the bus as your negative thoughts. The next metaphor that really sort of, as per ACT research has been very sort of useful for a lot of the clients, is the thought train, where as a client, if you imagined a train is passing by and the train has several boxes, and as you watch from a bridge the train passing by, each of the box cars has a worry or a negative thought written on it. Whether that thought is about your child or your children, whether that thought is about the future of your child, whether it's about a personal issue or any thought in the world, it could be financial, spiritual, emotional, whatever, physical worry. Imagine each of the box cars has that thought written on it, and watch the train go by. And rather than getting on the train of your negative, worrisome thoughts, you are looking at your thoughts from the bridge. What does that imply? That you're not looking through the lens of your worrisome thoughts. You are looking at them with a sense of defeating your worrisome thoughts. Think about it. Its thoughts are in our minds. Instead of being consumed by our thoughts, we can even practice this by actually having a visual of a train with box cars. We can write our worries. I worry that after 10 years, my child would still be dependent on me. I worry that my child has regressed to the point where, it can never get better. These are worries. These are valid worries, right? Now, just because again, the question is, there are two, if you think about it, we are not trying to deflect the worries and not trying to work on how to make things better. That's not the goal of these exercises. Just to clarify, it's not that we're trying to not acknowledge the problems we have. The first step is to acknowledge the current stressors, and once you have a plan of action, for example, what's the max you could do? Create a schedule for your kids. Assign therapists and therapies, make sure that you are addressing your child's needs or whatever. Beyond that, when you don't see an immediate return, because things take time, it's not going to happen like in a jiffy overnight. That's when, after we have put a complete sort of plan of action in place, that's when we need to detach ourselves from the worries, and that's when we need to stand on a bridge, metaphorically, and look at our thought train passing by, that we are almost looking at our negative thoughts and we're not being consumed by them. Because why do we need to do this? Because we need to regulate ourselves and not become so stressed out at our thoughts and whatever experiences and whatever stresses we're going through, that we end up having anxiety. We end up developing depression. We end up developing insomnia. Is it worth it? Is it really worth it, right? These techniques help us move on beyond that. Now, the next one is, and I'm going to go back to some of the visuals that I've created just to explain these better as well. And moving on, if you think about another metaphor, it's a beach ball. Now, resisting reality and ignoring one's issues is like pushing a beach ball into water and having it pop up when you let it go. This demonstrates that you can only suppress your thoughts and feelings for a certain while. Now, the fact is, the thoughts, feelings, and stressors, the idea is when you use metaphors to process them and you practice self-care to process them, you are not sort of, for example, you've been stressed out about a lot of, again, I'm talking about my experience with working with families for the last decade. And the topmost worry in all these years is about, it's affiliated with the future. Will my child ever be independent? After I'm gone, what the hell will happen to my child? Think about this. This is stuff, it's a valid worry. Can we manipulate the future while we're alive? No, we can't do that. Can we believe that there is a being up there, Allah, who has blessed us with our greatest blessings, who loves our child more than 70 mothers? Can we remind ourselves that if we think that we are all in all and we want to, in our lifetime, do the best for our kids, there is a higher being who is planning million things that we don't even know what they are? That this is a way to remind ourselves. And again, suppression doesn't help. Talking about it, processing it, and not letting the feelings consume us is the need of the hour. Another metaphor I'd like to share, and again, I'm going to share my screen because I have these written out and I'm going to share the slides with you so that you can think about this and practice on your own. It is leaves floating on a stream, where imagine sitting by a stream and imagine that getting their thoughts out of their mind and onto the leaves that are floating on the stream. This is a classic act metaphor. And visualize that you put all your negative thoughts about the future, which you cannot control, about the past that is in the past, about the present that you can't do beyond a certain wire. And imagine your negative thoughts are on these leaves and watch them float downstream and out of sight. And instead of keeping your thoughts inside, brooding over them, being consumed by them, imagine how you diffuse your thoughts and become more objective and detached. A lot of the families a lot of parent training sessions that I've had, I have had the fathers in general, regardless of the ethnicity of the family, they tend to be more matter of fact and they tend to be more accepting that I can't do anything about the future. Let me not stress about it. And the mother, and this is again, this is my experience, it might be different for another clinician, but the mother is the one worrying most, and the mother is the one who has insomnia. The mother is the one who, the moment the future talk comes in, starts to cry. Just last week, I had a parent training session. The mother, half of it was crying. The father was trying to pacify her because she just couldn't contain the thought about the future. And the father, on the other hand, ends up being stressed because of the wife's stress, because my wife is worried. I love her. I don't want her to be worried. She's a perfect mother. She couldn't be better. And is obviously as a father is concerned about the child. Of course, this is a natural love, right? So the idea is when we as mothers, as women, when we regulate ourselves, we are going to de-stress and actually help our spouse as well. Just think on those lines, not just for our kids, but also our spouse. So what I'm going to do is I just wanted to share my screen back again because I wanted to show these visuals and just things written down where just to sort of show you and take it from there. So yeah, just what I talked about, right? I talked about passengers on the bus, right? I'm going to share this with you. I want you to go over this. I want you to really, in a moment, whether it's before namaz, after namaz, your quiet, whatever time you have, whatever time you think is your time, think about this and practice this and imagine this visual of the bus. Keep this with you. Okay, keep this. Oh, I'll share this as a PDF. Open it on your phone. Keep this with you. Look at this bus and imagine that you're thought train. This could be the visual that you open up on your phones on the PDF, and imagine your thoughts going, by, and you're looking at your negative thoughts rather than being consumed by them. Beach ball. Think about this beach ball floating on this ocean, this sea, and imagine that you're not going to not process your negative thoughts. You will process them, and then you're going to practice thought train, and you're going to practice the metaphor of passenger on a bus, and you're going to take it from there. And then leaves on a stream. Think about this visual that I have right here. You will have this. Think about this leaf, whatever. Just imagine, okay, the first one, it has that thought, it's going away. Imagine that. Again, these are mindfulness activities that you can practice. Now, this is a mindfulness activity that I'd like us to practice right now. And what I can easily do is, again, stop sharing this. And I'm going to read this out because I don't want you to, I just want you to maybe close your eyes and visualize or whatever. And let's take it from there. All right, so for this mindfulness activity, all we need to do is sit in a comfortable posture. This is, again, I'm forcing you all to practice this. The reason I'm forcing this is just to sort of, make you realize how beautiful this experience is so that you can practice on your own. Now, this thing is called, this exercise is called Notice 5 Things. Sit in a comfortable position, pause for a moment, whatever you're doing, look around and see if you can notice 5 things that you can see. 5 things. You don't have to tell anyone, to yourself. Notice 5 things. I notice a clock. I notice a TV. I notice a laptop. I notice a fan. I notice a lamp. What do you notice? Keep it to yourself. 5 things that you can see. Now, listen carefully and see if you can notice 5 things you can hear. Any 5 things you hear. I hear the clock ticking, like tick tock, it's ticking. I hear my parents' sound in the background. I hear the AC wet, the vent and the duct. I can hear that. I hear my heart beating. I hear kids playing outside. What do you hear? Now, see if you can notice 5 things you can feel or touch, such as your clothes on your body, the air on your face, or your feet on the floor, more like the tactile stimulations. Notice them, 5 things you can feel or touch. And if you can't notice 5 things or your mind just gets busy, just notice and acknowledge the thought and let it go. And shift your attention back to the next thing you can notice in the room. So 5 things you can see, 5 things you can hear, 5 things you can touch or feel. This is one of the classic mindfulness activities that we do, even with younger kids. The social skills groups that I've run, it's remarkable even how 5 and 6-year-olds, when they're not regulated, when they're upset, just practicing the 5 things. And you can practice this with your kids as well. when you feel that they're very agitated, that they're not being regulated, practice this with them. And it's also a type of a distraction of our current thoughts, because again, we are becoming mindful and we are in the moment. We're not thinking about the past, the future. We're just literally thinking about the present in the moment, the things around us. This is called 5 things. Now, I'm going to open the forum. Again, before I do that, actually, I'm gonna sort of, I actually have something that's very close to my heart that I wanted to share with everyone, which has really helped me. I wanted to end with some reflections on the Quran and Sunnah, because again, this is from my dua card that I got years ago, and it has helped me over the years. And I'm going to read the English translation of these ayah, because I feel that they're very relevant to whatever we were experiencing, where Surah Tawbah, ayat 51, nothing will happen to us except what Allah has decreed for us. He's our protector, and on Allah let the believers put their trust. We just need to remind ourselves of that. Surah Yusuf, ayat 86, I can only complain of my distraction and anguish to Allah, and I know from Allah Ta'ala that what ye know not. Again, a belief that Allah is taking care of everything for us. And then Surah Yunus, ayat 107, if Allah do touch thee with hurt, there is none can remove it but He. If He do design some benefit for thee, there is none that can keep back. Surah Hud, ayat 56, I put my trust in Allah, my Lord and your Lord. There is not a moving creature that He has grasp of it. And verily, that is my Lord. That's on the straight path. Surah Fatir, ayat number 2, what Allah out of His mercy does bestow on mankind, none can withhold. What He does withhold, none can grant apart from Him, and He is all exalted and all powerful. And finally, Surah Zumar, ayat 38, sufficient is Allah for me, in Him I trust and those who put their trust. So these are just friendly reminders that, you know, we just sometimes, as much as we might go over on our own, it's worth being reminded that after all, Allah is taking care. And I'm going to, like I said, share these. And there's also some Masnoon Sunnah, but the top one I will only share. The rest you feel free to go over on your own. This is something that this tasbih has really, it really works, where, you know, we are for Allah and we are and we are to Him returning. Allah grant me reward in my calamity and cause it to be succeeded with good consequence for me. So these I will share, and you can feel free to go over on your own. But again, a friendly reminder that meditation, mindfulness, frankly, is something that does stem from our own deen. You know, just focusing on a namaz is, I think, the first step towards practicing mindfulness, which the Western philosophies feel that that's the code that they've cracked with all the research in the last few decades with the third wave therapies. But if you think about it, these tools have been provided to us by our deen anyway, 1400 or so years ago. So I'm going to leave I'm going to sort of open the forum for any question and answers, any reflections, or anything, whatever anyone would like to share, I'd be happy to address.